class is in session.
So today we are going to be going over this patch 7.11 notes for League of Legends. It was a patch released on 6/2 this morning. With it, we see a bunch of champion changes, item changes, as well as a brand new ban format, and that's going to be the main topics that we're covering today. To get things started off, let's scroll down, and we're going to come across Rek'Sai, Kindred, and Malzahar. The three of them got some minor overhauls to their way that their kits work. Rek'Sai's and Kindred seem to be pretty advanced, so have you had a chance to read up on that at all, Clayton?
Well, I've glanced over it a little bit. I'm glancing at it now, but still learning.
Rek'Sai was someone I wasn't really familiar with, so I don't know how these changes are really going to affect her with her new kit compared to her old one. It seems like she's going to be able to jump back to people pretty quickly, but she has to damage them first from what I'm seeing with her ultimate. So when you're buried, you could get a Q off, and if you landed on an 80 carry, it's like, great, you can jump them. But I feel like that's kind of a giant red flag for, hey, I'm going to jump on you and get the entire team to collapse under their 80 carry.
Yeah, I think for ganks, it's going to be very crucial to land your Q. It's going to be more important now because it didn't do any damage or very little damage before. And other than that, it did nothing. Whereas now it still doesn't do a lot of damage. But landing is going to give you a huge boost in other things. So I think that's going to be much more crucial now.
But it's still only going to be there when you pair it with her ultimate. She's not going to be able to jump onto anyone just willy-nilly.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Other than that, there's some number changes, but it looks like the rest of our kit doesn't change too much. Kindred, the changes kind of are all over the place. I have no idea what's really going to happen with her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she'll get played more just because, it's a rework and people are going to be excited about it. The extra range is going to be interesting. I know it can get kind of ridiculous, but you do have to get a lot of stacks for it to make a huge difference. As for the damage, I don't know, it's kind of all over the place.
She was already really good at chasing people, so now they're allowing her the ability to chase and keep extending her range with each auto attack that she hits. I mean, it'll be great for chasing, but I feel like if people are running at you, it doesn't really affect anything. So she might still be a little weaker as far as the skirmishers go.
Yeah, well, it looks like, so from the paragraph that they posted, they were talking about, they want her to basically be weaker in the mid-game, which makes sense because she needs to be able to gank, she needs to be able to clear, and then late game she basically needs to act as an AD carry. So they needed to make her weak at some point, so the mid-game is sort of where they're focusing on making her difficult. So you need to focus on getting a strong lead at the beginning, and then just sort of staying ahead in the mid-game, or potentially, even getting further ahead, and then by then at the end game is where you're going to really shine.
All right. I'm glad you're able to bring a lot more insight into this than I can, because I'm not too familiar with a bunch of the junglers. No.
Yeah, well, this paragraph is very helpful, actually, that they wrote.
They're usually pretty good about that. The one that I'm actually most interested in seeing is Malzahar, because he's been a huge boon into the laning phase as a support. You're just having that ability to instantly lock someone down and say, you can't move for 2 seconds. That's huge as a support.
Oh yeah, it completely turns fights. You could be so far ahead and still get completely destroyed by Malzahar right now in lane.
But they did take away a lot of his power in lane by moving a lot of power away from his minion swarm, which I think was good. His minions were able to get a little out of hand early. And on a lot of champions like Morgana, Lux, they're going to block a bunch of those skill shots if you get 2 or 3 out. So being very dependent on his spell cast now, I think is going to be a definite nerf to his early game, but he's still going to have that instant grab pick potential once you hit 6 through 16. Start roaming the jungle before you necessarily get too far into the end game.
Absolutely. I mean, he definitely had an issue where basically at level 3 he would either usually grab a kill or push somebody out of the lane, forcing a lead for his team immediately, and there was almost very, very little counterplay. Whereas now, at least there is some counterplay until level 6, and then even at level 6 he should be doing a little bit less damage, so that maybe there's some escape potential or some outplay potential there.
Other than that, that's it for the champion reworks. Looking over a bunch of the regular just champion updates, Seems like we've gotten a lot of number changes just to help balance people out. Nothing really jumps out at me as a huge nerf like they did to the Lee Sin in the last patch. Was there anything in particular that caught your eye?
Well, several things I still haven't read yet. I mean, Ari's W going down to a max ratio from a 0.64 to a 0.48 is slightly big.
Oh, I didn't even
but
see
I mean,
that
her
one,
E
actually.
got buffed for that. So, but her E is a skill shot, whereas her W is, doesn't take any skill to land. So that's actually kind of a buff. But then her ult does go down in damage. So I guess that's sort of, well, no, I mean, so she's getting a huge nerf in her abilities that take no skill to land, and then a slight buff in her ability that you don't have to aim. So that's it's going to take a little bit more skill to play her now, which is probably good because I do get tired of dodging every ability Ari shoots and still dying to her. That can be very irritating.
Yeah, just having that Spirit Rush 3 charges, you're getting that on-hit damage between that and Foxfire. It was really annoying.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's a very small change, but I think this is going to be a huge change to Caitlyn, which I'm kind of excited about. Passive headshot, Hurricane headshot, Runan's Hurricane bolts no longer stack headshot on Caitlyn. That is huge.
Yeah.
That she was, I don't want to say she was broken, but she had the potential to be incredibly strong in the right hands, and she would sometimes just completely carry games against me. It was like Vayne damage out of a champion that could stand twice as far away.
Pretty much the only chance that you were able to get to her and kill her was if you were playing a heavy assassin target, someone that could just one person dive in and attempt to kill her. Because if you went in with 2 or 3 people to try and dive her, she was getting that Hurricane procs off and getting a headshot every 2 or 3 auto attacks. And when you're already getting your net backwards, getting people stuck in traps, triggering headshot every other auto attack at that point, it's crazy damage.
Yeah, and even with a good assassin, if Caitlyn has a good support and then plays his trap that has some CC and plays his traps well, you're done for. So, and then her healing when she built a Bloodthirster on, obviously now we're talking late game, but when she has some lifesteal and gets headshots, her lifesteal was insane. So if you didn't burst her immediately, she was just gonna out heal everything and do gross amounts of damage. So even though I thought that was a cool interaction when Hurricane was stacking headshots more, I just thought it kind of was neat. It got to a point after the rework where it just kind of became kind of gross and kind of a little too much damage. So I think this will be a good change. I wouldn't be that surprised if maybe she needed a slight buff after this, because this does seem like a very large nerf, but we'll have to see, I guess.
So with Caitlyn falling off as far as AD carries go, because this is a huge nerf to her damage, what other AD carries do you feel like might pop up into that role? I know you said Vayne a second ago has that high damage output. Is that something that we could expect from AD carries now with the tank meta rolling back around? Just heavy AD carry tank killer damage like from her, or I'm forgetting some of the others right now. I think Twitch has some percentage based and Kog'Maw.
Well, one of the problems with Twitch and Kog'Maw, especially Kog'Maw, is how heavy assassin roles are right now as well. So I could see them having a big problem. I do almost, I mean, she hasn't gotten any stronger, so I'm not entirely sure, but I could almost see maybe Jinx, just because she could replace that long range. But even maybe Tristana, who not only replaces that long range, but has the jump. But I do feel like Tristana is kind of weak right now as far as damage, so she might need some sort of some help to get there. But potentially Jinx with her rockets on the Runans sort of replaces that massive damage, more in an AoE slot, but still can sort of nuke tanks if needed.
Right. All right, so we've talked about AD carries a good bit. Moving on. We've got some changes to Mundo getting attack damage. I don't think that's going to do a damn thing.
Yeah, I don't see a big difference there. I mean, yeah, half an AD. If he gets 10 autos off, it's 5 damage. I mean, who gives a shit? And Burning Agony, how much damage per second? I mean, that's pretty...
It's 5 damage at each level.
At each level, yeah.
Pretty minimal.
That's pretty minimal
For
as well.
someone who is so far below the threshold for tanks at the moment, he just doesn't bring enough utility compared to like the new Maokai, Sejuani, something like that.
He does do a little more damage than most of those, though. Well, I mean, I guess it's all situational, I guess, but...
He is also a tank killer as a tank with that cleaver.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it depends. I mean, he'll win more close fights, I guess, but it won't be a very large difference.
Alright, so after that, we've got a quality of life change to Lee Sin for high latency players. I wasn't familiar with this high latency safeguard ward queuing. I know you've played quite a bit of Lee Sin. Was that something that crossed your mind at all?
I mean, I had problems ward jumping, but I think it was more because I was bad than anything to do with latency or the game. No longer works with quick plus self-cast setting. Okay, so we're looking... So that's basically saying, hey, we fucked up and we didn't have time to fix it before the patch came out. Because that's not supposed to be there because it says they want to fix that. So we'll ignore that for now because that's weird. Lag is no excuse. Cast can now be buffered when placing wards. I mean, I don't understand that. You could always buffer it. You could click on the map to place a ward and it would place it before you got there or when you got there if you were out of range, allowing Lee Sin to quickly place and hop to wards on a high latency. I don't know exactly what this is trying to say.
Yeah, it's kind of thrown me for a loop too. The only thing I could think of is like when you are playing on Karthus or something where you're targeting a specific location to throw a Q, it'll move you a little bit closer to cast it at that location compared to someone with like Ziggs who will just toss a Q out in any random direction, and if you click further than his max range, it tosses it at his max range anyways.
Mm-hmm. And that differentiates abilities where you can activate flash or you have to flash activate, right? Like a Lee Sin R or a what's another one? A Gragas E, you can activate flash instead of flash activate. A Shen E, you can activate flash. But like what was your name? Karthus Q, you can't activate flash, right? You have to flash activate. So those are the differences there. With this, I don't know. I mean, I do notice problems where I try to ward hop on Lee Sin and it either doesn't place the ward, which could be that I'm placing out of range or whatever. But I do notice things like one of the problems and this is probably all skill based, but where you'll place a ward and then you tap W and it won't jump to it, so you start spamming W and now you've hit W twice and you wasted the second active on your W.
I know I do that a lot. I've tried to be a good Lee Sin, and when I really want to hit that insect play, I'm like, all right, land the Q, forget it, I'm just going to flash behind him. I'm not even going to try the ward jump. That's the only way I can manage to land it most of the time.
That's the best insect play. Alright, Lucian's Q, cost more mana. Okay, that's whatever.
That's it. It costs more mana, guys. I don't think that will necessarily keep him out of the mid lane, but we might see him start pulling out the Essence Reaver more.
Yeah,
Malphite's
yeah, I mean, his E is really his big thing, and that still is going to cost no mana at max ranks, so... yeah, you might see more Essence Reavers on him, which is not a bad item on him by any means. Although, what does make him strong is when he doesn't have to build Essence Reaver, because there are better items on him as far as damage output goes.
I've actually been building him as an anti-mage lately. Whenever I see like some good mage in the mid lane, I go in and it's like, alright, Hex Drinker, Edge of Night, Mark Treads. I'm done. I have one lane.
I mean, yeah, that's disgusting. That's rip anybody who fights that, who's AP.
But that's for that special mid lane Lucian. As an AD carry, I think he'll still have some prominence with the regular Essence Reaver build. Alright, moving on. Malphite, slight buff to armor, nothing big.
Oh, buffed damage based on armor. Right. So his E does damage based on his armor, so he's going to do slightly more damage.
I misread that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it first too. Which is the only reason I knew what you were talking about.
Maokai is someone I actually haven't played in this patch. So I'm not sure what these ability changes are actually going to reflect.
Okay. Yeah, no, see, I'm just trying to look over his stuff right now. So his passive, it's the exact same levels, but exact same, time limit, but at earlier levels, so that'll stack quicker. But the healing is getting reduced by a lot. Or the base healing is. What is the percent healing? The percent healing is going up, actually. So stacking health might be even more beneficial now.
Compared to you were seeing a lot of people that were going like the AP Maokais. I saw a couple of them support, but nothing of that really overwhelmed me. It seemed like it was all pretty easy to deal with.
Yeah.
It's like getting hit with one dagger from Katarina's ult. It's just like, okay.
If he got a lot of good saplings out of bushes, because I do more damage out of the bushes, it could be pretty punishing, but that just requires some brains to play around. So in low elos, it could be very punishing, but if you know how to play around it, it wasn't anything, too broken or worth changing too much. But it does look like they are discouraging the AP and trying to make you build a little more health, or at least they're trying to work you around the top line or tank or jungler.
And just like you were seeing the saplings nerfed, you were actually seeing a 50% maximum health nerf to that ability. It's going from 2% of their max health per 100 ability power to 1% per 100 ability powers. That is a 50% damage reduction on his E. So I don't know if he'll be able to use that to bully lane opponents anymore. So I think we potentially see the death of top and bot lane Maokai. Hello? Are you there?
That feel when you muted yourself. Okay. My bad. Yes, so yeah, we're gonna see if we do see more top lane Maokai. It will be obviously very health based. He's probably gonna rush a Bombi Cinder or something like that pretty often. Just so he can get the damage
to see him out. A couple seasons ago.
Yeah, basically. It's interesting. Sapling movement speed reduced to 400, but based on Maokai's boots. Changed based on Maokai's boots. So they're gonna chase faster. So you're gonna want to rush.
Rush boots to get your saplings to move faster.
Yeah, that seems interesting. Like, I mean, you're going to be really sad when someone barely lives because your sapling couldn't chase them down and get the final blow. But how often is that going to happen?
Yeah.
Every time it does, you're gonna pound your head against the wall that you didn't buy boots, and you saved up for that next health item. But every time it doesn't, you're going to be like, why did I buy boots?
But I don't think we're seeing a huge change to speed either. Like 400 to 460 seems like it's kind of big, but if someone else already has boots 2 or 3, they're probably not going to catch them if they got out of the initial range of the sapling. With all the champions that run mobility or have some type of mobility, it's going to be hard for them to actually get in there and catch up to them anyways.
I don't know. I mean, what, an Irelia with like boots 2 and Triforce is like base 420 movement speed? Around there, and then with a phage proc she might be at like 460-ish, but most people aren't going to be 460 plus unless they have a movement speed ability or like a phage proc. So I mean 460 will outrun most people, especially ranged champions like an AD carry.
I guess so, and Maoka has always had a pretty good chance at getting onto those. Alright, on to Renekton. Renekton's patch changes over the last 2 patches have been reverted.
That's interesting. I don't know what they were, to be honest. I haven't looked at them.
I think it was just quality of life changes, and they just.
It must have been, because I haven't heard anything about that. I never noticed anything.
Scion, simple changes, more health scaling, better. Syndra's W's harder to hit. It was really easy. There were a lot of times I threw it as an active Syndra player, and I felt like that did damage. Felt like they weren't actually inside the circle.
No, that ability is what made her, like, I don't know if it's what made her strong, but it was a very good ability because you could easily land the W. Like, it was very hard to dodge. Whereas Q was very hard to land, W was very easy to land. If you landed
W is almost like 100 to 200 units longer. It's somewhere in there. Like
exactly. And
slow.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna leave it at that. They do add that slow on there, and you can catch up to them onto an almost undodgeable Q. And if your Q's right on top of them, there's a really good chance you're gonna hit Scatter the Weak too.
Well, if your Q's are right on top of them, you're pretty much always gonna land Scatter the Weak. And yeah, so landing W was a free QE, and that's either a kill, or if you don't have ult, it's, you know, most of their health. And in lane early game, like level 3 or 4, that is, you know, that's really hurting their laning phase, and in mid to late game, that is a kill. So yeah, it was very much, you know, an ability just for basically to help you land the rest of your kit. So it was nice. So I mean, that'll probably make her a little less threatening in lane. I saw this.
Her, though.
I'm sorry?
I think we'll still see her. She's still extremely powerful. I was actually expecting a little bit of an AP ratio nerf onto the ult.
Yeah, her damage is still going to be crazy. So I still don't think this is going to completely destroy her, but it definitely will, you know, make her laning phase a little less, you know, horrible to lane against. So I saw this in a video, this Yasuo nerf, before I actually read it on here. And that, I mean, that's big. I mean, it doesn't seem that big, but a Yasuo gains a lot of lane pressure just by having that tornado up, that Q.
I agree.
And so, you know, and he would, you know, a lot of Yasuos would just stack it up and then hold it for 9 seconds. And so there's 9 seconds where you just really can't do anything. And so you're just kind of sitting there losing CS. So now this is going to reduce that a lot.
Really long range farm like Lux or Karthus, it's going to be hard for you to actually get in there and pick up that CS. It's just free lane pressure. That's all it was. And now it's going to force him to make that decision. Okay, I've got my charges up. Do I engage? Or do I sit on one stack and prep the second one and try and dive immediately? Or do I just sit on that one, make them think I'm going to get ready to dive in, and use that one stack as the pressure?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, yeah, I saw a video where they were playing it, and they kept trying to shoot it, and they were like, oh, it's gone already. So yeah, it's definitely going to change the way Yasuos have to play, and definitely going to take some of the pressure away. So that's going to be interesting to see, which is just in time for that skin release that's going to make everybody want to play him. So I'm totally fine with that.
Oh, yeah. All right. And then the last champion we're going to see is Zac. The 1 second to appear before he lands from Slingshot. It's the only major change that I really see affecting him much. But I already felt like there were times where I got out of his elastic slingshot landing and I would still get knocked up. And then just that extra quarter of a second, that's a long time. Like, I feel like that was a little bit of an over nerf for that ability. Because it's the warning indicator before he lands.
Yeah, no. I don't know if they're going to, you know, if 0.85 or 0.9 seconds is going to be a big enough difference, though, for most people's reaction times. I think this is relatively reasonable because, I mean, yes, he was pretty weak after the rework at first, but now he's been pretty strong. He's been I think one of the top junglers for a while since the rework, so I think this is relatively mild for as of a nerf, so I think I'm okay with this.
Alright. Well, that should just about cover it for all the champions. Last up, a couple of the items got new updates, mostly just icons and names. Nothing really changed with them, with the exception of Ninja Tabby and a couple gold cost. Ninja Tabby received a 20% damage reduction nerf, essentially.
Ninja Tabby got a 20%. So it went back to what it used to be, right? Because it wasn't at 10 before?
It was 10 for a long time.
It was 10, yeah. So it was 10, and then it got increased to 12. And I remember people saying, why is this such a huge buff? Why is everybody building this now? Well, that was, like you just said, a 20%, well, it was a 20% damage buff. This is more of a, like, 17% damage nerf, or
right.
Defense nerf. But, yeah, it was a 20% defense buff. That is really big for an item that, you know, the cost or anything didn't change, and it was already a good item. So yes, it was at a point where as a top laner, I liked it. because I almost felt like as someone like Fiora or Jax, I could almost just build Ninja Tabby, and that was all I needed.
Okay.
And it was kind of gross. It was kind of unfair. It felt awesome as a top laner. I won't deny that. But it just wasn't very fair. And then when you start seeing 80 carries building a Ninja Tabby, that's where you know you messed up. That's where you know something's wrong. Because they're not supposed to build stuff like that. So that's where you know something is wrong. So reducing this, I mean, maybe they could have made it 11%, or maybe they could have made it 10% with some other kind of side thing that wasn't quite as broken to buff it, but not make it, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they want a reason for 80 carries to become more prominent again. Unless you're playing at a really high level, 80 carries are an extremely hard position to carry from, and they were for a while. Bringing back the tank meta, people who are built to absorb damage, 80 carries are going to be a lot harder naturally. So just making it harder to itemize against them is going to be better, in my opinion, for the 80 carry community. And I think the other thing that they did that helps out 80 carries is making Guardian Angel a damage and armor item. So now you won't have your magic resist tanks like Galio wanting to build a Guardian Angel.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's going to make people like Fiora and Jax and Irelia and stuff stronger. So that's sort of a trade-off. But it used to be that they could build Tabby and GA and have plenty of armor. Now that's not as much the case. So, those people are going to have to probably build another armor item if they don't want to get completely melted by a mid to late game 80 carry. So that is going to be, a pretty decent change, I think, for them. Especially, but at the same time, they're nerfing Blade of the Ruined King, which is something a lot of ADCs are building right now because it has been very powerful.
Right.
So that's also going to make a lot of changes in those areas. I think it's going to bring more prominence to some of the crit 80 carries. The crit focused 80 carries, sort of like we talked about earlier with like maybe Jinx and maybe Tristana, who, she has a lot of attack speed, a lot of burst, but she needs crit and not just, that base damage. So
I think Ashe might actually pop up to a tier 1 80 carry now, because she was already being picked a lot for competitive play, and her focus isn't being affected by the Runeance Hurricane anymore. Or it still is being affected. But this particular
I could sort of see that,
interaction
especially with all the assassins right now that her ult helps so much against, and just the pick potential. I'm interested in this Banshee's Veil change, and I don't have time to read this entire paragraph, but I mean it's straight up just a stronger item now. It's more expensive, so maybe I think the idea behind that is they don't want you rushing it so much, because I think people are building it first or second item a bunch and just kind of ruining the mid lane. Because whichever side you're on,
Tigers that just get so ticked off when you build that. It's like once you build Banshee's Veil, you just win lane against them.
Exactly, and there's so many people that just counters really hard Viger and so on. There's a lot of them, and it's just like if they get it first, or if you don't want to build it, you're just sort of or if it's I wouldn't say talent, Katarina maybe, is just gonna build it and just kind of completely snowball with it, and there's just not a lot you can do. This is just gonna delay that a little bit, but the item's stronger. So it's not necessarily really nerfing you, it's just, you're going to take a little longer to get it so that you can carry. And late game, 6 item, 5 item, whatever, you're going to be stronger. So I actually kind of like that change. I like the way they did that.
All right, and then the last thing I want to touch on before we take off is going to be the ban formats. Normal and Ranked officially received their 10 ban system today, and that's going to be with both teams banning 5 champions each. One thing I'm not familiar with, because I haven't followed this too much, is I know each different team can ban the same champion, so you might end up with 2 players, 1 on each team banning Yasuo. But can multiple players on the same team ban the same champion? So could you potentially see like 10 Yasuo bans in a game?
I mean, I hope not. Wait, so I actually am not as familiar with this. So both teams can ban the same team. So can you no longer see the enemy team's bans?
You will see the enemy team's bans only, and yours and the enemy teams are going to be revealed simultaneously. So everyone on your team is going to pick one champion to ban, and you'll be able to see the bans from your team, and everyone's going to pick theirs right at the start. And then once you have all of your bans locked in on both teams, it'll display all 10 bans, and then those champions will not be able to be used that game.
Huh.
So
That's
you
interesting.
can potentially see Yasuo on each team. The only thing that I'm curious about is if 2 or 3 players on the same team can ban the same champion as well. It doesn't do you any good.
I highly doubt they would do that. And if you can see each other's bans, nobody would, other than trolls. But I don't think they would let you do that. I haven't looked into it, obviously, but...
And as of now, this is coming to North America normal draft, and it's going to be rolled out to ranked queues throughout the patch.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it, because there have been a lot of contested bans lately. It's like people have been saying for a very long time. We're getting to a point where there's just more champions, so we need more bans.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for everything I wanted to cover today. I want to thank Mr. Clayton Creep Young for coming on the show tonight. Thanks for helping educate some of these people out here today.
Yeah, no problem. I had a good time. Thank you.
All right. And that's going to be it for us today. Class is dismissed.